Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari.
Gopi Jana Ballava Givanadari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari.
Gopi Jana Ballava Givanadari.
Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Jamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Banachari.
Jamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Banachari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radhika Raman Radhika Krishna Vanamali Giriju Ki Jai Ho. Om Agana Timirandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Namo Mahavandanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gora Tavashe Namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. First of all, I'd like to offer my heartfelt Puspanjali to the lotus feet of my Harinam Diksha Guru, my everything, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Second of all, to my Bhajan Shiksha Guru, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, to Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj, and to our entire Guru Parampara, and especially to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and his Madhurya Kadambini. Yes. So we're coming back to the third shower of Madhurya Kadambini. We've had a little bit of time in Navadvip and with Srila Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Goswami Maharaj. So now we're back to shower 3 of Madhurya Kadambini. We're still in the offenses to the holy name, and we're moving on to the 4th offense. We've already talked about the first one, which is to criticize the devotees of the Lord. And we've understood that this is the most dangerous one, the hardest one. Because as we know from Upadeshamrita, controlling the tongue, Vacho Vegam, is the most difficult thing to do. There's nothing more difficult. The tongue has no backbone. Srila Narayana Maharaj said, no backbone, so it just wags, right? It wags this way, that way, we'll do anything. And the mind is a bit uncontrolled, and the mind is a stockpile of all our past samskars. So it's full of all kinds of things that it would like to just let the tongue wag about. So this one's a tough one. And Bhagavad Gita tells us how to control the mind, as is more restless than the wind. It's by constant practice and detachment. So that's also how because the mind is what is the controller of all our senses. So if we can control our mind, then our tongue will most likely come under control. And then the second one was to think that Krishna and his name, form, qualities are separate, that it's not just one. And also to think that Lord Shiva is an independent controller. No, he's dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is a subordinate controller, but he is Vishnu Tattva. Like the Sadashiva is Vishnu Tattva. He is in that category. And the third one was to disregard Guru, Sri Guru. To think he's an ordinary person, to not obey his instructions, and to think he doesn't know everything. Like this, to be disregarded. Now the fourth one, this fourth one is quite subtle actually. We usually think, oh, I don't do this. This one is to blaspheme the Vedic literatures. And here it says, if we blaspheme the Vedas and scriptures like the Satvata Puranas, this is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which are the Puranas on Bhakti. If we blaspheming those or any of the Vedas, this is an offense. And we would think, why is this? And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that there's many reasons why. And one is because in all the Vedas, in all the Shrutis, all the Puranas, there's many mantras and many statements about the glories of the holy name. And if we don't take these seriously, and if we're blaspheming that particular scripture, that means we're neglecting this glorification of the holy name. And we're taking other instructions that are in those particular Vedas or Shrutis to be more important than these instructions about the holy name. This is quite subtle. We'll talk about this a little bit more. And usually people on this kind of, that commit this offense, they give more honor to what's in, like performing sacrifices that are described in many Vedas. Those that are in the Karma Kanda and the Jnana Kanda. But still, in all the scriptures, always some mention of the glories of the holy name, which are the most important part of that scripture. So if we condemn any of the scriptures, this is actually an offense to Harinam. And what happens? We get no taste for chanting. No taste. Now, we can take a look at this a little bit deeper. Let's see, where is it? Anyhow. So, we're usually those of us who are practicing bhakti, we're not going to blaspheme the scriptures that talk about bhakti. That we're not going to do. Because just to have shraddha means you have faith in the scriptures. So if you're just to enter the path of bhakti, you have to have faith in the scriptures. That's part of the definition of shraddha. You know, faith in the scriptures. And we're going to do what the scriptures say. That's shraddha. You see? And to serve according to the descriptions of the acharyas and the shastra. So, and we get a little bit afraid if we don't follow, right? So we're usually not going to say anything against the bhakti shastras. But many times the devotees who are bhaktas, if they haven't had proper sadhu sangha, they denigrate the shastras that glorify jnana and karma. And they think that they're useless. They think that they're because they don't speak so much, they don't speak about bhakti, therefore they shouldn't kind of like even exist like this. Some devotees think like this. And also they don't honor those persons who are following these shastras like karma, jnana. They don't honor these persons who are actually following these shastras properly. They dishonor them, or they criticize them, they make fun of them, ridicule them. This is actually an offense to the holy name. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, and Srila Gurudev in his commentary, he explains that these shrutis, these shastras, they're personalities. They're not just a book that has they're persons. Everything that's spiritual is personal. So these Vedas, these Shrutis, these Shastras, where have they come from? They've come from Krishna. They were given to Brahma or other great sages in the very beginning of the creation of this material cosmos. They're coming straight from the spiritual world. They're descending, all of them. And they have a purpose. And the purpose is, of course, those that are giving bhakti, is that those who are qualified to take the bhakti, they can take the bhakti very quickly. And by sadhu sangha, they can go up very quickly. But there are many souls who are what we call wayward souls, souls that are so addicted to sense gratification, they are not qualified for the path of bhakti. They have no faith. They cannot. So the Shastras that give instructions on, let's say, how to attain the sweet, wonderful pleasures in the heavenly planets, very sweet, sweet happiness of the heavenly planets. You can do so many sacrifices, you can chant these mantras, and you can go to the heavenly planets. This is a step up for these kind of personalities, because these personalities, they're very lusty. They commit all kinds of sinful activities. They're opposed to religion, opposed to dharma, like this. And they're just going to commit so many sinful activities, there's no hope for them to ever come to bhakti. But if they come under the blessings of karmakand, and they start having a regulated life, following some rules and regulations according to the Shastra, they start leading a more decent life, a pious life, performing material activities, even though they're materially motivated, sakam, then this is making them more qualified, and they're starting to lead a pious life, whereas before their life was completely impious. So this is the compassion of Krishna and the compassion of all the Shastras that are giving this kind of instruction. Because they're persons, they're compassionate, they want to help the conditioned soul. I know when I started reading this, wow, I never thought of that before. Never thought of that. And then also, he's explaining, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Gurudev, that when one starts doing this, one starts leading a more pious life and all these things and having a higher goal, at least to go to the heavenly planets to enjoy, What happens usually? One, by great fortune, meets a pure devotee. And you see that in the Bhagavatam. There's one king, we just finished that, it's the fourth canto, I think, King Priyavrata. He was so absorbed in sacrifices. And who came along? Narada Muni. And Narada Muni preached to him, and finally he gave it all up, saw the worthlessness of it, became a bhakta, became liberated, like this. So this is what, once one becomes more pious, he's more likely to be able to take to sadhu sangha. Because you know how to act properly. You can honor a sadhu like this. Maharaj Priyavrata, he knew how to honor Narada Muni. If he was just a low-class sinful person, a rascal, he wouldn't know how to honor Narada Muni. It would be very hard for him to get the mercy. Of course, nowadays in Kali Yuga, Nitai is so merciful, he picks up even the most fallen chant Hare Krishna like Jagai and Madai. But we have to understand the reason for the Shastras on karma, the karma kanda. It's so that these persons can gradually become qualified to enter the path of bhakti. And same with Gyan. With Jnana Shastras, at least these persons, they're focusing on the impersonal aspect of the Lord. Like this, and they want to merge into this is their ultimate goal, is to merge. There's no variety, but they just want to, taste the sweet taste of Brahmananda, like this. And so then they start following. They become very austere. Many jnanis, they're very austere. They become sannyasis, very austere. And also, if they're very fortunate, they will meet a pure devotee. And when they meet that pure devotee, what happens? The pure devotee is giving Harikatha. And he talks about all the sweet qualities, the sweet pastimes, the sweet form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he gets attracted, because it's much more attractive, isn't it? Krishna Leela is so attractive. And so they give up their impersonal ways, and they take to bhakti. And at that point, they think that all their impersonal knowledge, everything was very insignificant, like the happiness in the hoofprint, a water of a hoof in the hoofprint of a calf, right? This compared to the great unlimited ocean, the ras of pastimes of Krishna. It's rasic, just so completely full, purna ras, right? Diving up and down in this ocean of ras. So it's very important. And also, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, not only should we appreciate these shastras, we should make sure we honor those that are following them. We shouldn't make fun of them. We shouldn't criticize them. We shouldn't look down on them like this. We should be very, very careful to honor all living entities and encourage them, and maybe help them also come up so that they can meet a sadhu and that they can take to the path of bhakti. We can give them some mahaprasada, right? We can do so many things like this, but we honor them. And if we have criticized these kind of persons, or we have criticized the Shastra, we have, with the same mouth that we were criticizing, we should glorify. We should tell the real glories of all the Shastras, like that. And we should take the association of that sadhu who actually understands all these truths, understands why all the Shastras have come, why they've descended from the spiritual world. And when we meet that kind of person, he can actually help us understand, oh, nothing moves but by the will of the Lord, and it's all for his pleasure. There's a, you might say, a reason behind everything. So we should be very careful not to criticize. And so we should glorify these Shastras. We should glorify and honor those personalities. And we should take shelter of Harinam. Always taking shelter of Harinam. And we should beg forgiveness from those that we have dishonored, from the Shastras, from those personalities. And we should become humble. Very, very humble. Like this. Also, it's very interesting because if you remember in the Srimad Bhagavatam, I think it's the third to last chapter in the 10th canto. It's called The Prayers of the Personified Vedas. It's a very long chapter. And there we learn a little bit more about them as personalities. Because they're waking up the Lord. These Vedas, they wake up the Lord when he's sleeping, right? Narayan, like this. And they're chanting so many things, and there's so many deep, deep meanings here. But in one of their prayers, they explain themselves, because they're persons. They explain that actually, because they've heard so much, and they've heard about the Brajvasis, and they've heard about the Gopis, their desire is to actually follow in the footsteps of the Braj Gopis and get the same mercy that the Gopis got when they were embraced by Krishna's blackish arms in the Rasa dance. They're speaking this himself in this chapter in the 10th canto. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his Tika there, he says that Krishna grants this wish. He says, this is very, very difficult. What you're asking for and what you're wanting is so difficult. But because you want, I will do. So in the next kalpa, you will be born in the womb of gopis, and you will become gopis. And we do hear from Rupa Goswami that who becomes gopis? The personified Vedas, the Shrutis, they become, demigoddesses can become, those that are, so many persons can become gopis. Well, also the personified Vedas. They're persons. And then in the next, new persons become the personified Vedas, like this. It's not that everything's impersonal. It's not, it's just a book, doesn't matter, it's just some book. No. No, these are personalities because they've descended. Just for us, because we're such gross materialists, especially in Kali Yuga, So then it's appearing, because in the past they had scriptures written on palm leaves, like this. But even that, just recently, it was heard. You heard everything from your guru and from the sages, and you could remember everything. They were not writing things down. But now we have, we have printing presses and we have this and that because we're so dull. But actually, these books, this Madhurya Kadambini is not a dull piece of matter. This Madhurya Kadambini is the embodiment of the process of bhakti. It's Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's heart. It's the moods of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti. Who is he? He's a manjari, a maidservant of Srimati Radhika. So we have to really start to understand and not commit these offenses against the Shastras, no matter which Shastra. Even, let's say, the Bible. Even though it may have been changed when you get it to book form, not the real Bible, it's been passed on, but, in book form. Because our Shastras also, as they come down, they get changed a little bit. We've seen many Bhagavad Gitas that are produced by impersonalists. They've been changed a bit. But we still have to be very careful because the originals are completely pure, 100% pure. And that's why we need the association of that sadhu who understands what the scriptures are actually trying to tell us. Then we won't commit these kind of offenses. There's a nice example in the Jaiva Dharma. I forget which chapter it is, but it's Lahiri Mahashai. He's become a pure Vaishnava. And he's married and he has children. And he was always fighting with his son before. His son is on a much lower level. But when he becomes a pure Vaishnava, he goes to his son and he actually apologizes. This is such a good example. He says, "I'm so sorry I fought with you. Now I understand you cannot really be anyone who you are. You can't be somebody else at this point. So I should not fight with you. I shouldn't criticize you." And this is pure Vaishnava. You see? Sees like this, understands where everyone's at. So those that are following Gyan, Karma, especially, I know when one becomes a new devotee and one is coming out of certain types of Western background, maybe even India, we have a tendency to think we're kind of superior. And we kind of turn our nose up at the Christians or the Muslims or the Gyanis or the, Karmis, like this. This is very, very neophyte behavior, neophyte consciousness. We should always be very humble. We're an insignificant, very small, tiny spirit soul. And by great good fortune of Krishna, we have come to know the path of bhakti. We have met a pure devotee. We met one of his representatives. And if not externally, at least through our ears, like this. Everyone who's come to the path of bhakti has heard of Rupa Goswami, has heard of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, has heard of our Srila Prabhupada and all of his god brothers, like this. Even if we haven't met personally, like this. We should be very, very grateful and very humble and thankful. And we should want to help others no matter what position of life they're in, no matter who they are. Even the greatest criminal. Of course, that person should be prosecuted for whatever crimes they're doing, but we should feel compassion. Compassion that, he's suffering, this poor spirit soul. What a terrible condition he's doing all these awful things. And we should want to pray that somehow they can chant the holy name. They can come to the path of bhakti, like this. So the same for the Gyanis, same for the Karmis, same even for the Namaparadis. Because we have probably been a Namaparadi, because we're chanting and we're not crying and weeping. Our heart is a stone. Why? Because we've committed offenses to the holy name, to Guru and Vaishnavas. So we should be very, very compassionate on all living entities. And we should We should try and practice ourselves very honestly and very sincerely, but very humbly. And somehow or other, try and help those that are around us. This is Jiva Doi. We have our own Harinam, our own bhajan, but Jiva Doi. This is one of the most important. And mainly, we're not so qualified, so we can't, in one sense, do the Jiva Doi, but we can assist the pure devotees who are practicing the Jiva Doi. We can, it's like for me, my Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, I can assist him in his part in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. We can assist Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Goswami Maharaj. He went all over the world. We can assist Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Jiva Doi, they're doing, because they're bringing that premanam, you know. They're bringing Krishna. They're giving us Krishna. They're giving us Lord Chaitanya. They're giving us Rupa Goswami. So we can assist them, and we should always be very selfless and very enthusiastic to do this. Doesn't mean, and it's whatever way is we can feel that our Guru wants us to do this. Not that we have to be like someone else. Someone may be out in the streets distributing lots of books, but someone else maybe just, you know, when he walks, he has a few books in his little pouch, and when he goes to the store and he meet in the cash register, and the person says, oh, you know, because maybe you're wearing some tilak or devotee clothes, and oh, you know, and then, oh, here, have a book, one book. When I go to America, I was there in 2019, it was like that, you know, because I found that most persons, they're quite simple nowadays, and they're suffering so much, and they have no answers, and pretty much all over the world, even in the Middle East, yoga is very popular. Kirtan, everyone's heard of kirtan nowadays. So we don't really need to think, oh, you know, and be embarrassed or anything. It's just so common now because of the technology. And because of the persons, there's so many yoga studios. In every country you find a yoga studio, isn't it? So I know Prabhupada, he has one very small book. It's called The Perfection of Yoga. So you just bring, oh, here, nice book about the perfection of yoga. Of course, it's all about bhakti yoga, you know. Anyway, oh, that's nice. You seem like a nice person. There you go. Simple. Even if one person, they read just a little, they see the Hare Krishna mantra. This is compassion, isn't it? So everyone should carry a book or two, you know, and be willing to give it out. Can be in any language, wherever you are, you know. And you find, this is what I always found, the books jump out of the bag yourself. Even if you forget, you know, all of the books going, hey, you know, I'm here. That person over there, I think it's got his name on it. Here, come on. So, oh yeah, okay. Really, the books are personalities, you know? Or some treasure that you have in your heart. There's someone that, oh, I want to be shared with that person. Some treasure in your heart. Or some little Mahaprasadam. This is assisting Mahaprabhu in his Sankirtan movement. I don't know if I've told this story before, but I have a godbrother and a godsister, they're married, and they went on a holiday. Now, I thought it was in Africa, someone else thought it was in South America. Anyhow, kind of the same difference. And they were going up in a tour bus up some mountain, right? And halfway up this big mountain, of course, there's a little store where they sell like candies and cigarettes. You know, this, I don't know what you call those kind of stores. Little store where stuff where you can get things. And the person in that store, it was either Africa or South America, in the middle of nowhere, he was reading Srila Prabhupada's second canto Bhagavatam. Somehow he had gotten that book, and that's the only book he had, and he was reading it over and over and over again. He loved it. Second canto, that's a pretty amazing canto. So we're just instruments. We're here to be instruments for Sachinandan Gaur Hari. You know, he's the ocean of compassion. Gaur Dayanidhi. Dayanidhi, Gaur, compassion. Why? Because he's Krishna, who is being embraced by Srimati Radhika. And is completely controlled by Srimati Radhika, right? And her sweetness, her moods, and her complexion. And so he wants, because her heart is so compassionate. Her heart, Rupa Goswami describes Srimati Radharani's heart like butter, soft as butter and just melting in compassion. That's the heart of Srimati Radhika. So this is Krishna when he's taken on her Gaur complexion, Gauranga, Gaur Dayanidhi. So his heart is also just melting like that for every conditioned soul. And not just the human beings, all the animals, all the rocks, every spirit. He wants everyone to become delivered. And when he was here, we know he delivered everyone, didn't he? All the animals, everyone. He did wherever he was walking, you know. But for us, we can assist in that. We can assist in some way or another, like that. And actually, it's very joyful because devotional service, as Bhagavad Gita says, joyfully performed, and you get a certain kind of joy that different from sense gratification. Everyone knows what it's like to have the joy of sense gratification. For one thing, you can never get enough, and it doesn't last very long, and it kind of gets sour at the end, you know. It's just not so joyful, actually. There's always a fear of losing it, like this. But the joy of bhakti, it's an inner joy, and it comes from selflessness. It comes from pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in this case, it's Sachinandan Gaur Hari, through the mercy of Sri Guru, the representative, like that. I know myself, I'm not very selfless, but I was a book distributor for many, many years. And I could feel that when I was distributing books for Srila Prabhupada, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam's Krishna books, so many books. And we were going out day after day, hour after hour. And it was hard work. It was really hard work, you know. But there was a certain inner happiness because you felt so connected to Srila Prabhupada and Mahaprabhu. So connected. So if we have that kind of service attitude. I just had a little bit, so I got a little taste, right? Because I'm not so selfless. But every now and then, you get this taste. And it doesn't have to be, I just was a book distributor, so I have that example, but it can be when you're cooking, when you're cleaning, when you're dressing to any devotional service, like this. That happiness that comes from being a bit selfless and just wanting to please Sri Guru and Krishna. Once one's tasted even a few drops of that, one knows the difference. And then one starts to lose his taste for material enjoyment. How is it that we've all, somehow or other, we're chanting Hare Krishna in France, in Spain, in America, and you know, where is it? And we're following the four regulative principles, and we're doing this and that. How is it? Because some higher taste, isn't it? Some higher taste. And some also understanding that following these other paths are very worthless, and they're dangerous, and they don't bring happiness. That's even karma and jnana unless one meets a pure devotee. But they're step-ups. But like Maharaj Priyavrata, who met Narada Muni, and he was doing all these sacrifices to attain the heavenly planets, after the association of Narada Muni, finally understood that that path was very dangerous, and it wasn't going to bring him any happiness. Because once you get to the heavenly planets, after your pious activities are done, you fall back down. You don't stay there. And when you're here, you never know. You might commit so many sinful activities, then you're going to go to hell. And usually you do, because this particular king, Maharaj Priyavrata, his sacrifices included killing animals, because that's there. There's somewhere, I forget I think it's once a month, and you have to kill a certain kind of animal. There's certain sacrifices, and they come from the scriptures. They do. But the problem is, lots of times you make a mistake. You do something not quite right. And in karma kanda, if you make even a small mistake in the mantras or something, it's a big problem. Whereas in bhakti, you never have a loss. Never a loss. But in karma kanda and gyan kanda, it's very dangerous, actually. So, but those that are following this, they don't know this. But Narada Muni explained to the king that, wow, all these animals are just waiting for you to die. And when you die, they're gonna torture you. Boy, did he wake up when he heard that. And I can't remember, but maybe Narada Muni even showed him, all the animals that were waiting for him, We are so caught that we don't realize what is waiting for us unless we follow very sincerely the path of bhakti. And then we do know what's waiting for us, which is Goloka Vrindavan. But if we don't follow the path of bhakti, and if we disregard the instructions of Sri Guru, if we commit offenses, not thinking it's very important, we also don't know what body we're going to get in our next life, even as devotees. That is the example of Maharaj Bharat, who had to become a deer. So we have to be very careful. We won't lose, though. In bhakti, you won't lose your bhakti. It'll be there, but you will have to suffer some before that bhakti becomes available again. You see? So we should be very, very careful. Very careful in our practice of bhakti. And that means on all levels. That means in our activities, right? How we're doing things. Trying to learn how to do things properly. Now, of course, it's hard for us, at least for me, because I was a hippie. And I did, even in the material world, I did so many things wrong. I wasn't very trainable. I was very rebellious. Hippies, we were rebellious. We didn't want to be told what to do. So we got a lot of bad habits. So sometimes it's very hard for me to take to all the proper practices of bhakti externally, physically, with the body. I'm trying, but, wasn't my culture, wasn't the way I was brought up. Then what to speak of the way we think? Because thinking, this is what we're, our save in our mind. We have to be careful, and that's it. Not to be envious of others, not to be greedy, not to be angry, not to have fear. Like this. And then we're speaking harsh words. Maybe be nice, but it's kind of like condescending, putting someone down. Oh, you're so nice. The tone of our voice. Lots of it depends on the kind of family we were raised in. Because if you're raised in a family that's just not such a high-class family, many times the tones of the voices are very, very rough and very hurtful to the other persons. And we don't even really realize we're doing this. So we need to really become detached and start to listen to how we're talking, to watch our mind, what we're thinking, to watch how we're doing things. And for the pleasure of Sri Guru and Gauranga, try and at least pray to be able to please them with our words, our activities, our thoughts, our moods, like this. Because really, unless we get the mercy, we're very conditioned. Very, very conditioned. And fortunately for us, Krishna is bhavagrahi. What does that mean? He only accepts our mood. If we actually, in the deep core of our heart, want to please him, but we really can't. We don't really control it. We just can't. We just have so many bad habits. We're so conditioned. But if in our heart we wish that we could, Krishna accepts that. And eventually, he will help us have that sadhu sangha that will help us become very pleasing in all ways, you know, like that. If we want it. If we're not envious, thinking, oh, really, it's just somebody else's, you know, it's not me, it's the process, you know, it's the process. Or it's the sadhus, or, you know, something else. But if we say, oh no, it's my conditioning that's the problem. Krishna, you please help me. Please remove all this. Please remove it. Please let me somehow or other become pleasing to you. Krishna will very quickly make us acceptable to engage in the service of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and ultimately in the service of Radha and Krishna, like that. Very quickly he can do that if we want it. Now, if we aren't even aware, and we're just thinking, oh, I'm doing really good, I'm such a good devotee, you know, and everything's fine, you know, oh. And actually we're doing so many things that really are not acceptable. So, like this. We have to become very honest about what's going on in our mind, what's going on in our heart. And pray and pray. So, I think we'll just have a short class today, unless someone has a question. Anyone have a question?
You were mentioning about the offense to the Guru, no? I was thinking something.
Okay.
Because sometimes I hear somebody like, oh, Guru told like that because the servant is influencing him.
Say that again?
Sometimes I heard like, oh, Guru told like that because the servant or one devotee very near to him is influencing him.
Oh.
I always thought this is thinking that he's ordinary human being, so this is aparat. What is your opinion?
Yes, she's saying that some people think that the servants of the Guru control the Guru. That's basically what you're saying. Like that the Guru is saying this to him because the servant has influenced him. This is an aparad. Guru cannot be controlled. Cannot be controlled. If he allows it to be like that, that's because he's allowing that. But he is the one in control because he's descending from the spiritual world. I have an example of that. Srila Narayan Maharaj was one time in Australia, and he was exhibiting a sickness pastime. He had gone to the hospital, and then he had come back to this one devotee's place. And one of my friends, who's his disciple, she was a nurse, and she was taking care of him at this person's house. She would come and go. She wasn't staying there, but she was taking care of him, right? And so she was doing the intravenous, whatever it is, and she was told that no one's allowed to talk to him, no one's allowed to be in the room. So somehow or other this one day, an Indian couple somehow got in the room. And they were talking to Gurudev, and of course he was very happily talking to them. Because we're in Australia, it's very nice for him to be able to talk Hindi, and he likes this. Well, he likes talking. He said, anyhow, this is what was happening. And in comes one of his servants. And the servant got very upset and got the Indian couple out and told my friend, no one's supposed to come in the room. No one's supposed to talk to him. And so the servant went out. And Srila Gurudev turned to my friend and said, what did you have for breakfast? And my friend said, Gurudev, I'm not supposed to talk to you. And Gurudev looked at her and said, they think they can control me. No one can control me. I am in control, like this. He very point blank said what's happening. If it wasn't like that, what is the point? Why would you want to take shelter of someone who can be controlled by a conditioned soul? No, that means he's conditioned also. We are taking shelter of the pure devotees who are coming from the spiritual world, who have come only to give us, ultimately, praying, to awaken our potential that's there in our heart, and to take us up the path of bhakti, so our bhakti lata can blossom into bhav and prem, and we can once again enter the Leela, not once again, finally, enter, yeah, no, we haven't been there. We didn't fall from Goloka Vrindavan. So that yeah, the leaves don't even, yeah. We can enter the Leela of Krishna in our spiritual bodies, right? That's what he's come for. He wants to offer the flower of our heart, the pure lotus of our heart, to the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. That's the only reason why he sees that we're suffering. He has no other vision, and he wants that for every single person. So to think that he can be controlled by some conditioned soul, that's the third offense to the holy name. Definitely it is. Yeah. Yeah. So, but the thing is that Maya is very tricky. Maya is very tricky. Because the spiritual master, he appears to be an elevated, ordinary living entity. He takes on a body that looks like ours. But it's not. It's actually transcendental. Srila Prabhupada's body is transcendental. Srila Narayana, all of our, they're all transcendental bodies. They look like ours. They even act like us in some ways. But they're not. And this is something, that's the transcendental faith. And when you have that faith, then you actually finally have, what do you call it, paramartik shraddha. And when you have that kind of shraddha, then you can actually progress in your bhakti. That's right here, shraddha. Then you're actually taking sadhu sangha. Then you actually can have a nartana vritti. You cannot have a nartana vritti by yourself or from some conditioned soul. It's not possible. Only a pure devotee can remove the anarthas in our heart. No one else can do that. So how can you have a nartana vritti if your guru is controlled by a conditioned soul? No, that means he's a conditioned soul. And he cannot help you. He cannot remove the anarthas from your heart. Not possible. He can maybe help you, whatever he has. He can give you some kind of guidance if he's more elevated than you are. He can do that. He can't save you at the time of death. Not possible. Because he hasn't conquered death himself. He doesn't have bhav. He doesn't have prem. You see? So we have to be very careful. Oh, my guru knows everything about the spiritual world, but he doesn't know how about health. He doesn't know about that. No, he doesn't know any of the material stuff. Actually, he knows everything. Everything. And he knows what's the best medicine. Harinam, 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 Kevalam. And what to speak of Charanamrita. I have a god sister who is really sick. She was in India. This is way back in the 70s. She was so sick, and she'd taken all these different medicines. And she was so sick, she was about ready. And finally Prabhupada said, just take Charanamrita and chant Hare Krishna. And of course, she was cured. It's all a matter of faith, isn't it? It's also, if it's our time to go, it's our time to go. And if it's not, it's not. You know? As Prabhupada would say, what is the fear of death? Why is that? We're chanting Hare Krishna now, we chant Hare Krishna then, we'll chant Hare Krishna in the next life, and we go back home back to Godhead? It's always just chanting Hare Krishna? Like this. So we should be very grateful that we have come into a process that will take us back home back to Godhead. And we have met the bhaktas, the pure bhaktas, who can liberate not just us, but a whole universe, every single one of them. Every one of them. And we should feel in such a way, we should never be envious. We should want everyone to be liberated. Not that, oh, I'm liberated and I can't stand that guy. Please don't give him, no. No, please, everybody can go, but not him. He's so horrible. He's been so horrible to me. I hope he doesn't get praying. No. Or even, this one is harder even. This is a hard one. But it means you have to come up to a very high level. No, he's a child molester. He molested children for 50 years. He should go to hell. No, he's a spirit soul. He should get punished for his sinful activities. Yes, he maybe should go to prison, but hopefully he can one day become free from that horrible offense, from that horrible activity, and he also, his pure spirit, because he's a pure spirit soul beneath that conditioning. And we hope that one day he can really repent, ask for forgiveness, and go on in bhakti. This is a hard one. To see the soul. We have to see the soul. This is what the Guru sees. The Guru, I had that experience with Srila Prabhupada. I could see, and I was so grateful that he was seeing me, the soul, and not my conditioning, because my conditioning was very ghastly, And he accepted me, and he brought me into his family, and he allowed me to live with him, in his family, and to take to the process of bhakti. He didn't see what a disgusting, conditioning I had. Or if he saw it, it didn't matter. That can easily go. Like this. So we also have to develop that kind of conditioning. Not conditioning, that kind of attitude, isn't it? No envy. No hatred. Hatred, I was just reading, it's very interesting. Somebody sent me a little quote from Chanakya Pandit. We quote him a lot. I don't think he was a pure devotee, as far as I know. He was just a pundit, politician, but he had a lot of good quotes. And he is quoted by Prabhupada and Gurudev. They quote him a lot. And he was saying, hatred means that we don't accept a person for who they are. And if we can do that, just accept them for who they are, then it turns into love. Then it becomes love. You see, like this. Yeah. And what is envy? Envy is when we're not seeing the good in another person. You see? Like that. Uh-huh.
Focusing on the...
Yeah, we're focusing, and if we see the good, then we can be inspired. Yeah. Uh-huh. So we have to really start to fine tune. Yeah, we can fine tune. We can fine tune. Uh-huh. She needs that tan, that thing over. No, the tan one, the light tan. Yeah. We're going to do a little offering for my Thakurji now. Yes. So this is the thing. We want to be fine-tuned eventually. And eventually, see, as we progress in bhakti, we're going from class to class to class. We're in the school of Nityananda. We've talked about this before. We're in the school of Akhanda Guru Tattva Nityananda. Srila Gurudev would talk about we're in the school of Gorka Shodas Babaji. Well, he's in the school. He's one of the teachers in the school of Nitai, isn't it? So we're in school. So everyone's been to school, pretty much, And when you go to school, you're in first grade, and you have a lesson, and you take tests, and then if you pass, then you go to second grade. It's really not a big emotional thing. You might make a mistake. 1 and 1 is 5, and the teacher says, no, 1 and 1 is 2. And you learn finally 1 and 1 is 2. It's not 5. It's just the method of teaching, the process of learning. So with us too, we shouldn't, we might make a mistake. It's no problem. Then Guru says, no, that is like this. This is what it is. Then finally we pass that test and we go into the next class and the next class. But eventually as we go up, then more and more is expected, isn't it? Like if you want to get a PhD, you can't be performing on the third grade level. You cannot. You have to actually, perform on a higher level. So for us, eventually we're going sadhu sangha, we're starting our classes, bhajana kriya, doing our bhajan, and hopefully if we pass and we start progressing and we accept the anartha nivritti, we get to nishta, and then ruchi, then a shakti, and then bhav can come. And then finally, when we get born in Braja Vrindavan from the womb of a gopi, for most of us, this is our destination, then we get trained by the gopis. We haven't made it yet to Apricot Leela. We're still in Prakat Leela then. And we've got a lot of training to go. Like if you read eventually the Ujjvala Nilamani, I thought there was one sloka in there that was so sweet. One gopi was teaching another gopi how to do man. You do this and you do that. It was like you have to learn how to do man and you have to learn how to do this. Fine tune, This is gopi prem, how to perform properly, as a manjari or, like this. That's exciting. And there's so many different moods. Some are very soft, some are very like this, so many different moods. So it's a very joyful prospect. It'll be very much delightful there in the school of the gopis when we can finally. But we don't get to go to the school of the gopis, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, until when? Until we get the stamp of approval that we've got our PhD from Nitai or a representative of Nitai, Sri Guru, when they actually give you that diploma. And when you're up there in college or, when you finally get your PhD and he says, okay, you're a PhD. That comes from Nitai or his representative. Then, only then, Srimati Radharani says, oh, okay, Nitai, okay, you can come. Now you can come. Now you're qualified. This is the whole purpose for Gaura Leela, for Navadvip. For us to become qualified to serve Braj Ras, to be able to enter into Vrindavan, and to be able to enter the school of the gopis, or if you're a Saka, the school of the Sakas, like this. We have to become purified. Purified, minds have to become clear, so that we can actually attain, so we can be given bhav and prem, like this. So it can become we have it, so it can be awakened like this. So it's a very joyful process. It's a high prospect. It's a very attractive process. It's very attractive. It's much better than what we're being offered in the material world, especially nowadays. Nowadays, whatever you do, pretty much is going to take you to hell. Enjoy it now. Yes. Enjoy now, go to hell later. And you don't even enjoy now anyhow. There's really no enjoyment. It's sad. I'm laughing, but actually it's very sad. It's very, very sad. And all we have to do is read the Srimad Bhagavatam. And with the purports of Srila Prabhupada, because at this point we don't really have Bhagavatam with the other purport. Well, we do with Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. They're there too, And because I'm reading now with some friends, we're doing Istagosi, and we're in the 5th canto. And of course I had read Bhagavatam all the way through. Even in ISKCON we'd gone all the way through. But when you go slow and you do it according to the process of Istagosi, taking the book and talking about with like-minded devotees, under guidance, then the purification. And now I can finally see, yes, if you do like this, when you get to 10th canto, you're going to be qualified. Really, really, Bhagavatam will qualify us. And Lord Chaitanya said, Bhagavatam is the Amal Paran. He recommended, this was the evidence, isn't it? Bhagavatam, like that. So we take shelter there. We learn. And we see all the past. Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwarpa Yuga. the kings, the sages, all this, it's all the same. Suffering in the material world. You know, according to Satya, this suffering. But finally they meet a pure devotee. You know? And then finally they take to the path of bhakti. It's right, you know. We have a lot of family members. All kinds of family members. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Srila Gurudev, in lots of his books, he speaks about karma and jnana.
Yeah.
But who is following those paths?
What?
Who is following those paths?
Those are karmis and jnanis. Not so much those who have come to Srila Gurudev, because they already accept him as guru and they're accepting the path of bhakti. There are those in the material world. Now, in this day and age, there aren't so many persons really following properly. Some are. But in the past, you had, like, what was his name? Prakasananda Saraswati. You know, they were all following. They were all Paka Mayavadis, Paka following, you know, Gyan, all like this. And then the karmis, like I said in the Bhagavatam, there's Maharaj Priyavrata and so many. You know, they're doing all these sacrifices, pious life, so that they can, you know, go to the heavens and have a heavenly pleasure, or to have a beautiful wife, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Maharaj Chittaketu, he wanted a son. He had so many wives and he had no son. Like this. So in this day and age, everyone's lower than Sudras. Most everyone's just a mudha and a rascal. They aren't following anything. And so that's why Lord Chaitanya movement is there. You know? You're not really qualified for anything, so please just chant Hare Krishna.
Or maybe some are following more or less.
Some.
Some into sense gratification, they may be called karmis. Some
Yeah, there are. Well, yeah, because it's like pious activities, but they're materially motivated. So Christians can be like that. Muslims, even so Hindus, they can be like that. You know, they're following some scriptures, you know, but it's materially motivated, you know, like that. But it's not usually the high class that was in the past. The karma kanda, you know, the karmis in the past, like this Maharaj Priyavrata. He was very paka, you know, like that.
Everything is diluted.
Yeah, very diluted in Kali Yuga. Very diluted. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we can have kirtan. Thank you. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radhika Raman Radhika Krishna Vamana Vanamali Giriju Ki Jai Ho.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama,
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. I have one thing I thought of because of what you said. You know, that Srila Gurudev's books have, he talks sometimes about jnana and karma. Well, one thing we have to remember also, that should keep us pretty humble, we've all been everything. We've been jnanis, we've been karmis in the past, so we shouldn't be so proud. Oh, now I'm a bhakta, you know, like this. But we were so fortunate that somehow or other we met someone who helped us come to the path of bhakti, like this. So we should want the same for everyone. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radhika Raman Ki Jai.